Hello, good morning. Welcome to the first read of the week. We are at Monday on chapter, 15. And we are at, I'm just going to double check that it's 15. I'm pretty sure it is. Yes. Okay. So we're on chapter 15. It is called The Great Plan. So last week we heard all the things that the BFG and Sophie were talking about, how the giants just continue to eat people, and we were talking about the dreams that the BFG was capturing, and Sophie was kind of investigating those, checking things out. So today we are going to read The Great Plan. So here we go. "We've absolutely got to stop them," Sophie cried. "Put me back in your pocket quick, and we'll chase after them and warn everyone in England they're coming." "Redunculous and impossible," the BFG said. "They is going 2 times as fast as me, and they is finishing their guzzle before we is halfway." "But we can't just sit here doing nothing," Sophie cried. "How many girls and boys are they going to eat tonight?" "Many," the BFG said. "The flesh lump-eating giant alone has a great spackling whoopsie appetite." "Well, he snatched them out of their beds while they're sleeping? Like peas out of a poodle," the BFG said. "I can't bear to think of it," Sophie cried. "Then don't," the BFG said. "For years and years, I is sitting here on this very rock every night after night when they is galloping away, and I is feeling so bad for all the human beings they is going to gobble up. But I has had to get used to it. There's nothing I can do. If I wasn't a titchy little runty giant only 24 feet high when I would be stomping them. But that is absolutely out of the window." "Do you always know where they're going?" Sophie asked. "Always," the BFG said. "Every night they is yelling at me as they go boodling past. The other day they was yelling, 'We is off to Miss Sibby's and Miss Sorry's to guzzle them both.'" "Disgusting," Sophie said. "I hate them." She and the big friendly giant sat quietly side by side on the blue rock in the gathering dusk. Sophie had never felt so helpless in her life. After a while she stood up and cried out, "I can't stand it. Just think of those poor girls and boys who are going to be eaten alive in a few hours' time. We can't just sit here and do nothing. We've got to go after those brutes." "No," the BFG said. "We must," Sophie cried. "Why won't you go?" The BFG sighed and shook his head firmly. "I has told you 5 or 6 times," he said, "and the third will be the last. I is never showing myself to human beings." "Why ever not?" "If I do, they will be putting me in the zoo with all the jiggy-raffs and caterpitters." "Nonsense," Sophie said. "And they will be sending you straight back to an orphanage," the BFG went on. "Grow-up human beings is not famous for their kindness. They is all squiffle-rotters and grink-sludgers." "That simply isn't true," Sophie cried angrily. "Some of them are very kind indeed." "Who?" the BFG said. "Name one." "The Queen of England," Sophie said. "You can't call her a squiffle-rotter or a king-sludger." "Well," the BFG said, "you can't call her a squeak-pip or a knot-muncher either," Sophie said, getting angrier and angrier. "The flesh lump eater is longing dearly to guzzle her up," the BFG said, smiling a little now. "Who? The Queen?" Sophie cried anxiously. "Yes," the BFG answered. "Flesh lump eater says he is never eaten a queen, and he thinks perhaps she has especially a scrumdiddlyumptious flavor." "How dare he!" Sophie cried. "But the flesh lump eater says there's too many soldiers around her palace, and he dassent try it." "He'd better not," Sophie said. "He is also saying he would like very much to guzzle one of the soldiers in his pretty red suit, but he is worried about those big black fluffy hats they is wearing. He thinks they might be sticking in his throat." "I hope he chokes," Sophie said. "Flesh lump eater is a very careful giant," the BFG said. Sophie was silent for a few minutes. Then suddenly, in a voice filled with excitement, she cried out, I've got it, by golly, I think I've got it. Got what? Asked the BFG. That answer, cried Sophie. We'll go to the Queen. It's a terrific idea. If I went and told the Queen about those disgusting, maddening giants, I'm sure she'd do something about it. The BFG looked down at her sadly and shook his head. She is never believing you, he said. Never in a month of Mondays. I think she would. Never, the BFG said. It is sounding such a wonky, tall story. The Queen will be laughing and saying, what awful rubbish. She would not. Of course she would, the BFG said. I has told you before that human beings is simply not believing in giants. Then it's up to us to find a way of making her believe in them, Sophie said. And how is you getting in to see the Queen anyway? The BFG asked. Now hold on a second, Sophie said. Just as you hold on a second, because I've got another idea. Your ideas is full of cogswoggle, the BFG said. Not this one, Sophie said. You say if we tell the Queen, she would never believe us? I is certain she wouldn't, the BFG said. But we aren't going to tell her, Sophie said excitedly. We don't have to tell her. We'll make her dream it. That is an even more froth-bunkling suggestion, the BFG said. Dreams is lots of fun, but nobody is believing in dreams either. You is only believing in a dream while you is actually dreaming it. But as soon as you is waking up, you is saying, oh, thank goodness, it is only a dream. Don't you worry about that part, Sophie said. I can fix that. Never can fix it. The BFG said, I can. I swear I can. But first of all, let me ask you a very important question. Here it is. Can you make a person dream absolutely anything in the world? Anything you like, the BFG said proudly. If I said I wanted to dream that I was in a flying bathtub with silver wings, could you make me dream it? I could, the BFG said. But how? Sophie said. You obviously don't have exactly that dream in your collection. I do not, the BFG said. But I could soon be mixing it up. How do you mix it up? It is a little bit like mixing a cake, the BFG said. If you is putting the right amounts of all the different things into it, you is making the cake come out any way you want. Sugary, spongy, currantly, Christmassy, or grab-switchy. Grab-switchy. It is the same with dreams. Go on, Sophie said.
I has dillions of dreams. On my shelves, right or left? Right, Sophie said. And that is where I'm going to leave you today. Tomorrow we will pick up with the second part of this chapter in part 2. I will see you then.